Why is change so difficult? We expect our leaders to create visions and to share those visions with us. Almost inevitably, those visions involve some element of change. Whether it's a change in the process of how we go about our work, whether it's a change in the structure of our organisations, whether it's a change in how we behave, or more importantly, changes in the culture, the way we do things in our organisations. And yet there's a paradox associated with leadership and managing change. And that is that 70 to 80% of all change efforts fail. So we have two questions arising from this. The first is, why is change so difficult to manage? And secondly, are there models or frameworks that we can use which will help improve our success and outcomes? Let's start with the first of those questions. I think it's really important to recognise what change is. Change is a dynamic and social process. And by dynamic we mean that it has many moving parts. It has intended outcomes and unintended outcomes. Even the smallest of changes will result in unintended outcomes. And those interconnections are not always understood, are not always known when the change process is at the very beginning stages. People will generally react to change in one of three ways. They may be enthusiastic, they accept the change, they're proactive and they're willing to come on board. A second group of people, which is really the majority of people, will adopt a wait-and-see approach. They want to see how the change is going to be received, and they'll base their judgments on what they see and experience. And the third group of people are the people who will fundamentally resist the change. And very often we're tempted to ignore that group and to say that they're just resistant people and we shouldn't bother with them. But in fact, it's much more subtle than that. Because these people may not agree with the change. They may have seen this happen before and they may have experienced this before and realise that this is not going to work. They may not like the change agent, the person who's bringing about the change. But more often than not, what we find is that people object to the how the change is being implemented. It's the process of change. They are not being consulted. They don't feel as if they're being engaged. They don't feel as if their voice is being heard. And when that happens, people will disengage and they will resist. So the bottom line is that change will happen when people are engaged and people are key to the implementation of change. The second question we asked were, are there models or frameworks that we can use to help us implement change? And the answer, of course, is yes. There are many models that we can use. The oldest going back to Kurt Lewin, John Cotter. We can use quality tools and frameworks, Plan, Do, Study, Act. We can use the HSE model, any of the organisation development models. What these models do is that they help us to organise how we're going to plan and implement the change. And they enable us to take a holistic view of that planned change. Essentially, all of these models are divided into three areas. First, they encourage us to plan the change, to try and see how the change would work, who needs to be involved at the change, and to try and schedule it. The middle part is about the action. What actions are we going to take and how are we going to implement the change? And the third component, and a really important point, is how the change is going to be mainstreamed or embedded so that it becomes part of the culture, the new way of how this organisation or team is going to work. So what are the take-home messages around leadership and managing change? The first message is that leaders need to be good and effective at managing change. The second is realising that change is a dynamic and social process. But we have tools and frameworks that can help us in implementing change. The third point is about people. As a leader, you cannot implement change on your own. There are always other people that need to be involved. They need to believe in you as a leader and the vision of where you're going in terms of implementing change. And you need to listen to them. Did you find that useful? If so, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.